Hi, in today's video we'll talk a bit about animation terminology because starting from the next video when I begin the exercises I'll be using this terminology and it'll be much easier for you to understand. The lessons will be easier if I first introduce you to the basic terms. These are the most commonly used terms when talking about the intricate world of hand-drawn traditional animation, and it certainly does not stop just there. These are the most frequently heard essential words and industry standard terms. I will say them in English once again, primarily because they are the universal language of the craft, not only for some of the tools and software, their functions, but also the terminology itself, when it comes to animation, that is. The first thing, the next fundamental concept that we will discuss in detail is the idea of keys. But what exactly are keys or key poses within the context of professional animation? Essentially, these are all of those critical and primary poses that serve to mark the very beginning or the absolute end of a specific animated scene, as well as indicating something important happening with the movement, whether, as I said, it's the beginning or end of the movement, but also a change in direction or a change in expression, and any such significant and profound transformation in the physical condition or the deep emotional state of the character, which should be absolutely key for the movement and the overall scene. We will now perform a small exercise so I can demonstrate this to you. So, how exactly do these things appear when put into actual practice, if we are required to do so? Let's create a movement, I'll just do that, of the head of a character. I'll draw a circle, the center line, and the eye line. And so right now we have a complete character. Or perhaps just his floating head, whichever we want. To turn and look in the other direction, I decide how long I want the movement to take and where its endpoint is. In this case, I'll set it here at frame 21. For the following step, I would like your next pose to be positioned exactly at frame 21. I draw the head again, now turned in the other direction. And here is the character. If we turn and start looking in the other direction, now I'll number the start and end so I can show you something else that's characteristic of hand-drawn animation. You won't see this in cutout animation. We'll talk later about how things work there and how drawings can be marked. But when it comes to hand-drawn animation, when we're doing the rough animation, even though here we know which is which, we do this and we can see that this is 1, this is 21, they are numbered. Now I'll tell you why we write 1 and 21. To mark that these drawings are key poses, we circle them. This is also something universal, if you see it. Right, rough animation. If you look at some scenes, you'll notice that the numbering is marked in this way. We have two key poses at 1 and 21, and we circle them. Later on, when classical animation is being done, even though it now happens in a digital environment, it still goes through the classical stages. And those stages are, I'll write them down again here with something else. Color. Yes, classical hand-drawn animation goes through 3 stages. The first stage is rough animation or the second stage or cleanup. And the third stage is color. So, since these 3 stages are done by 3 different teams, in order for each subsequent team to have the information about how the animator built the scene, what the most important drawings or key poses are, and which are the second most important drawings, or the so-called breakdowns, and which are the third most important drawings, in between drawings, or intermediate drawings. So for this purpose, it's necessary to number and label everything correctly so that each subsequent team knows. How do we rank the importance of the drawings and why is it important? I'll explain in a moment. Let's get to that. So, as we said about key poses, it's the beginning or end of the movement or something crucial to the movement that happens. Whether it's a change of direction, a shift in emotional state, an expression, or anything else the animator deems important to be done as a key pose so that it provides the necessary information to the director. Why am I saying all this? Because even if we break it down, all these stages and sub-stages, the rough animation is not done. And suddenly, for all the drawings, meaning now for the movement, from here to here we won't make all the drawings, nor is it done to show the supervisor or the director. Only those key poses are made, and some breakdowns are added so that the animator can quickly show what they've envisioned happening in the scene, and if the director approves it, they can move forward. It's not worth investing all that time to draw every single frame and then show it to the supervisor or director, only for them to say, "No, I don't like this, I want the scene done differently." That way, the animator would have wasted a lot of time on something that in the end it wasn't liked, and the animator would have to start over. So to save that time, the scene is presented with the key drawings, which are fewer in number when there are no in-betweens. And in this way, time is saved. And therefore, resources are saved, and several different interpretations of the scene can be made quickly so that the director can choose one in some cases. In other cases, the director might not choose any of them or might say, "That's good. I like the direction, but this and that need to be changed in order for the scene to turn out in the best possible way." So that's why now we're building the scene only with key poses, breakdowns, and now I'll add a breakdown of the breakdown. It's marked with a little triangle, and it's the next most important drawing in the animation. So what exactly is a breakdown? If the pose marks the beginning, the end, or some drastic change, then with the breakdown we can fundamentally alter the inherent nature of the movement, or illustrate exactly what is going to occur between those two key poses, which can actually comprehensively define the unique personality of the entire scene and the specific manner in which the character behaves, acts in terms of performance. So in this case, let me give you an example. The character, as he turns, I'll use the breakdown to show the nature of the movement. I'll lower the head, and the character will go through with the so-called lower arc. This is one effective way to carefully set the specific character of the movement. Now I can begin to demonstrate the next step. Continue with defining the character of the movement by closing his eyes. In other words, now, as the character turns in the other direction, not only will he pass underneath with a lower arc, slightly tilting his head forward, but he'll also close his eyes and blink, like this. I can also do it quite easily. In another way, and go over the top side. But this time, he doesn't close his eyes. He opens them wide. And in this way, I have the same beginning and end, but my breakdown determines the character of the movement. I add numbering, marking the number with a little triangle so that it's clear going forward. The team knows that this is the breakdown or the second most important drawing. And I have the whole movement constructed. This way, I can show it to the supervisor and accordingly to the director so they can comment on whether, in this case, this breakdown meets their expectations and their vision for the scene. They might want something additional to happen, which is already a matter of the interpretation, both by the animator and the director. If there aren't specific instructions given, there can be discrepancies. Not all directors, they give precise, clear, and specific instructions on how they want each scene to look, while others leave it to the imagination of the animators, which on one hand, this could mean that depending on how many different animators work on a given scene, there will be as many different interpretations of it, which some directors actually like. Others, however, insist on seeing exactly what they envision, and that's why they give more detailed instructions. Now, we have these three drawings, and we've done that, and we have the overall movement. What else can we add? Well, let's say we could, before it starts to turn this way, we could decide to cause it to glance just a very small amount, like this, to look in the direction it's about to go. Then we have a new position, we have a change of direction, so this will be another key pose for us. And that way we'll have initially a movement to the left before the character starts moving to the right. And in this case, if that's what we've decided to do, we add this position as it's a key one so we can send the scene so it can be reviewed by the supervisor and the director. If we get the thumbs up, if the scene is okay, we can move on to adding the in-betweens. Now, something else that if you see in a group animation scene, you might encounter what's called an animation chart or a movement diagram, which might look like this somewhere on the side of the screen. The following thing might be drawn. like this. The animator shows not only for themselves but also for the following teams how they intend to arrange things. For the in-betweens that are between frame 1 and frame 7 and between the first and second keyframe using this diagram. And like this. In this case, I want my next in-between drawing, which will be number 3, to be exactly in the middle between 1 and 7. I make it like this, two little arcs to indicate that I want number 3 to be exactly in the middle. Here I have one arc, and here I have one arc, which means this is exactly in the middle. The next one, number 5. They go in odd numbers because we're animating on 2s, something we'll talk about in upcoming videos as one of the principles of animation. That's why I go like this. 1, 3, 5, 7. I want 5 to be in between the already drawn 3 and 7. Now I'll have to make the schematic for how I want it. However, now from 7 to 21, the schematic of how I want the drawings to be arranged from 7 to 21. In this case, 11 is in the middle. I've already drawn it. That's why I put 11 here. And again, I do the same thing like this. Now I want from 7 though to 13. To start off a bit slower here, then speed up, and after that towards 21, slow down again. That's why I do the following. I don't put it in the middle anymore. I place it a bit closer to 7 and do the following. Here I make one arc, but here I make 2. This immediately means that 9. I will attempt to bring the gap significantly closer together towards the final position. Once you start, 9 will be somewhere right here and will be closer to 7. In a bit when I start making the intermediate ones. Around 21, I want the movement to slow down again, meaning it should start slowly here, speed up, and then slow down again here. That's why I do the following. I place the next one, 13, in order, exactly in the middle between 11 and 21. And I keep doing the same thing. 17, sorry. I actually mixed up the numbers 15, 17, and 19 right here in this specific spot. My apologies for that confusion. And now I have it. The little animation charts, and now I can start based on these charts I've made to add the in-betweens as well. And now let me quickly explain something, okay? Because I didn't explain here how it's done, but when we have layers of drawings to add an empty frame, since when we draw something, if we don't interrupt the sequence in a very specific manner, that drawing will continue all the way up to the point where we've extended it. Now, in the timeline layer here, if I want to create an empty space and add a new drawing, I right-click on the frame I want. I select Insert Blank Frame. And this way I create an empty box. The black dots mean that I have a keyframe, and the slightly lighter gray means that there is a drawing on the layer, while the darker blue indicates something else. This dot here isn't filled in black, it's just outlined and empty inside. This accordingly means that it is a blank keyframe. The frame is empty and there is nothing on it, so if you see this difference. This means that when it's lighter and there's a black dot, there is a drawing on the keyframe. You can add a keyframe with a right click, insert keyframe, but that will create a keyframe with the same drawing. To make an empty space so you can draw and add new drawings, it needs to be insert blank keyframe. But with that being said, I think we'll stop right here for today, because this video is already starting to get a little bit too long. And as you probably know by now, I really don't want to bore you endlessly with too much detail. In the second part, we'll talk about the other 2 stages. Until then, leave your comments under the video. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss the next videos. I hope you found this video interesting and most importantly, useful. I'll be waiting for you in the next video. Bye for now from me.